From Monday, tenants in Victoria will see a number of changes. Joining me live now is Leah Calnan from the Real Estate Institute of Victoria. Leah, thanks so much for your time this afternoon.
My pleasure. So
the changes in legislation, it's a big win for renters, particularly those that own pets. Is that right?
It is. It's a huge win for tenants, absolutely.
Can you talk us through what these legislation changes are?
So the new process, effective as of Monday, is tenants will make an application for a pet. They have 14 days to submit that application, and the owner has the choice on either approving the application or making an application to VCAT. So the emphasis is really on the owner to decide if it's a yes or if it's, unfortunately, they're not going to approve it, and then they'll need to take their case to VCAT.
So is this for all animals, or is it only small domestic animals like dogs and cats?
Yeah, no, it's for all animals, and I think that's where government has potentially got it wrong.
Yeah.
It includes everything from, think about regional Victoria, where you might have some alpacas or some horses or cattle or goats, and metro Melbourne, you could have cats, dogs. Beehives is something that is applicable in the city of Moreland.
So not everyone obviously is happy about these changes. Some landlords say that they see a lot of damage from animals, and we can understand that. Cats clawing floorboards or dogs chewing parts of the house. Does this expose them to a greater risk and eventually a greater cost?
Yeah, potentially there will be greater costs for the investor market. We need to consider that most landlord insurance policies on the market at the moment, they only define a pet as a cat or a dog. So a rabbit might chew the carpet, it might damage the carpet, as you mentioned. There might be other types, and we have to think about the multiple animals. In most councils, they allow 2 cats and 2 dogs, and that's not deemed unreasonable.
So if landlords do try and deny a tenant permission to keep pets, as you say, they have to take the matter to the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. That could end up really clogging the system for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's that unintended consequence that government hasn't thought through. It will potentially delay rent arrears cases that are going through VCAT, bond claims, refunds, compensation. There will be a substantial amount of applications made, and that's a great concern for us.
So do you think that this is a good idea, this change?
If it had been the other way, I love animals, we love pets, and I think most people should be able to have a pet. But if the emphasis had been on the tenant to make the application, it would show that they actually really, really want to keep that pet for the term of the tenancy.
Right, so you think that the tenant should be the one having to go to the tribunal and submit the request as opposed to the other way around, the landlord?
Yeah, rather than the landlord, absolutely.
Are we expecting any other changes along with this one that are implemented on Monday?
No, this is the only one that government pulled out of their 130 reforms, which are due to take effect 1 July. And we wonder whether or not that was relating to the decision that they didn't have to complete any regulatory statements, impact statements. So, yeah, it's an interesting one because they certainly did for the rest of the new changes coming in 1 July.
What other changes are we expecting in a few months' time?
So we'll see changes to the rent arrears process. There's effectively a 5-strike rule, I beg my pardon. There's the removal of the 120-day no reason notice. We've seen changes with rent increases. We're seeing a greater emphasis on documentation when ending a tenancy. A large selection of changes that are certainly more in favour of tenant than landlord.
Is that a growing trend that we're seeing legislative changes favouring tenants?
Yeah, government were very clear, the Victorian government were very clear that they wanted to create a secure of tenure. The Real Estate Institute of Victoria's concern is that it will potentially go the other way, where tenancies at the moment sit at about 18 months on average, whereas if moving forward they'll potentially just be reduced to a 12-month, and then owners and property managers will decide on the performance of the tenant and then end tenancies and look for a new tenant.
Okay, well, thanks very much for your insight this afternoon, Leah. It was certainly good to have a bit more understanding of those changes, and of course we'll speak to you in a few months' time when the next round are coming through.